Hello, everybody. This is Clinton Bonner, VP at Topcoder. I am joined. This is a fearsome foursome we have here today. Where we're going to be telling a really great innovation story. This is happening right in the middle of coronavirus in the United States. We've got a great team together. First and foremost, I'm going to go. I think you're going to see him as bottom right-hand corner, the man of the hour here. We've got Dr. Dan Rifkin. Daniel is the founder and medical director of Ognomy, a brand new application, a telemedicine application. We're going to be telling you all about that today. That's number one. We'll bounce up to the top left. We got Sam MARRAZZO, Chief Innovation Officer at BNMC, which is Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. And then below Sam is Kelly MacLeod, a PM at Topcoder that I work with Kelly basically every single day on Slack and have a lot of fun doing it. So quickly, people want to say a quick hellos and introductions. Dan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you, Clinton, for spearheading this. It's going to be a great discussion and a really great story to tell. I've had the pleasure of working with you and with Sam and Kelly. It seems like I've gotten to know Sam and Kelly like family members at this point. We've worked so closely together these past few months, so it's really been an amazing pleasure.
Hey, my name is Kelly MacLeod. I'm a project manager at Topcoder. I've been working on this project since December. I've really enjoyed the project. I do come from a front-end development background, so it's kind of nice to be back in my wheelhouse a little bit. And I have a great team at Topcoder that's really been making me look good with my co-pilot and our developers. So.
Yeah, very, very cool community for sure, and some amazing work happening. Sam, up to you. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm really excited to get this across. I use that word a lot, across the finish line with Dan. I got to know Dan and Kelly really well. I already know that guy on the left, Clinton, for years. But it's been a really good synergy, and I'm really excited to get something that's going to be tangible and really useful, especially in these during Corona season.
Yeah, and I think that's the key term, right? It's really the measure of any application is the usefulness. Like, how useful is it? Timing, in this particular case, it's a rough time out there for many, but timing will help an application like this that's centered in telemedicine get out and have just more people hopefully paying attention to it right away because of the way it can disrupt what is the sleep apnea market. But Dr. Dan, why don't you do us the favor of leading out with kind of the story, the dream of Ognomy, and at least set the stage for folks who are watching as to what does the application do and how is it disrupting sleep apnea and some of the features you're bringing to market. And then we'll go around the horn and talk about some of the early steps you took with BNMC and then how it got over to Topcoder too. But I think it's really important to set the stage. What is Ognomy? What does it do? And why is it different?
Sure. And if I get a little too long-winded, just cut me off. But
that's okay.
It's kind of an interesting story because I've been practicing sleep medicine, Clinton, now for more than 20 years, and not much has changed. We see patients in the office, we recognize disorders, we order sleep studies, which are typically done in a laboratory, and I'd say probably about 6 or 7 years ago, there was this concept of doing some more testing in the home. Certain tests were becoming more validated, and I started to incorporate that into my practice, actually studying patients in their home, which patients do like. They like to sleep in their own environment, and it's definitely applicable to certain patients. But as time moved on, I realized that we could do a lot more patients at home, and not only the convenience, but it's also it's less expensive. We get the same kind of data in a lot of circumstances, and it's very helpful. But I wanted to also see whether or not I can incorporate some telemedicine into that, right? So if we can study them in their home, maybe we can actually see them in their home. And telemedicine's been around for a while, and doctors have been trying to incorporate it into their practice, and it really hasn't caught on so much until now, more recently, because unfortunately, due to this COVID national emergency, we're being forced to use telemedicine. So we're getting used to the idea of it. But I tried to do it years ago, and there were a couple of telemedicine companies, even specific for sleep medicine. There was one called Sleep TM, which was through our American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which is good. But again, it was more like a fancy teleconferencing or video conferencing overlay. That, it was hard to incorporate it into the actual practice. I mean, patients had a real hard time downloading the app, finding us on the app, the user interface wasn't so great. So, I moved on to the next one. I think it was eVisit, and tried to do some things with that. And I just kept on finding it very difficult to incorporate it into the practice. So that led me to, I have one of my centers right in the Innovation Center on the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. And Matt Ensis, who's the CEO of the BNMC, he's actually a friend of mine. And I sat down, I was talking to him about it. I'm saying, I've been trying to do this for a couple of years already. And I wonder if there's something I can do on my own that's not going to be too expensive, but something I can use in my practice as a true practice innovation, and use the operations of the practice and make it more comfortable for patients to do telemedicine. And he's like, I got this perfect guy. I want to introduce you to him. So he introduced me to Sam. I remember the conference room. I remember sitting there, and then Sam's pulling up all this stuff on his computer, showing me stuff that he's done. And when I tell you, I have zero software experience before this whole process. I mean, this was like, software to me was just the App Store and then downloading it on my app and playing with it. So after that meeting with Sam, I was just enthralled, but incredibly confused. And it's almost sort of like my mind was a mush ball. Like, how do I even begin? And, Sam kind of took my hand and he said, Dan, this is going to be okay. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set you up with some guy from Buff State, this Dr. Puccio. He's amazing. He does design. I'm going to put you in this workshop. And then when we do that, we're going to work with this company called Topcoder. But, let's just start here. Let's just have you meet with Dr. Puccio, and I can kind of let Sam take over from there a little bit, and he can walk you through the initial process of that design piece.
Yeah, I think that'd be I think it's a great segue. So, for folks following the bouncing ball there, it's you have 20 years, to recap that quickly, right? 20 years experience in sleep medicine. And yes, there were telemedicine applications out there. You named a couple, but the uptake was hard. It was hard for you, and likely hard for your patients. And with any application, it's all about that. It is about that design experience. If you don't get that right, and you suffer from uptake fatigue, or just a lack of uptake, it doesn't really matter. Your best intentions go out the window, and the application is not going to succeed. You're not going to have that critical mass of people using it, which in something like medicine, I feel like you really have to have that gravitational pull to get enough people on board and get going with it, to really go wide and go broad, like I know you're hoping to with Ognomy. So Sam, you meet Dr. Dan. He comes in. He's got his big idea. He knows the CEO at BNMC. You have a great program where you bring people through a design thinking process, and you're weaving things like crowdsourcing into that. Can you kind of take the baton from Doc there and talk about the kind of your first impressions upon hearing about this idea, and maybe how you brought Dr. Dan and their team through your process of design thinking up at BNMC?
Yeah, so Dr. Dan was very kind words he mentioned about how we first met, and it was in the conference room. And after we discussed it, I think I took Dan aside. I said, do you really want to do this? I mean, do you know the software process is grueling? I mean, I'll get you. I just want to know what your commitment was. And Dan's like, I'm committed, but I want it done tomorrow. And Dan has a really great way of, his mannerisms are, he's definitely, he's got firm, but he's very gentle and kind, but he can be very firm, and he knows what he wants. So I knew up front, we had to do it right. We had to get the designs right, because it's all about the patient and in his mind, he's been doing this for so long. He had this idea, but mashed up with a design thinking expert, myself, with all these years experience. I come with many years experience of building software and processes for companies. I thought, okay, let's take him through the whole design thinking process, which I don't think he was familiar with exactly. We hear about design thinking, but it was a 1.5-day workshop, and where we put his team. We had our team there as well, kind of guiding him, but really what the outcome was basically wireframes, but in his mind and everyone in the room, I was leading towards getting an outcome for the community that could be consumable and understandable through our work in the workshop. Typically, in Topcoder, we do, you guys have your own programs, you work with a client, but this time I really wanted to capture that in 4 or 5 different frames that was recorded, so we can quickly, we'll call it ready, set, go requirements. And that really was set the frame for Dan, because Dan said this is like it was very fast, but it did accelerate both sides, was his ideas on the palette, and the outcome for Topcoder was your design community said, wow, this is a nice little package. So it was a win-win, because I can get the guy in the room who knows everything about sleep, and I get the guys in the room, virtual room, that know everything about design. And ambiguity was relieved because of this design thinking / Topcoder. So it's definitely a great concept, and a new kind of business model for the next project. But that's how it all happened. And Dan, is definitely has been again, I get to know him as well, and we've just been pushing hard to see a great outcome, and here we are today.
Yeah, which is and we'll definitely get to that for everybody watching too, about like where are we today specifically. So Dan, you take this meeting, you go through a 1.5-day workshop. I'm imagining that that you're fired up, and Sam is infectious in all the right ways, and I'm sure you're whiteboarding and sticky notes and doing all the things with visual design thinking, and you walk out with this output, and then Sam says to you, okay, we're going to take this output, it's going to become an input to a virtual community called Topcoder, and they're going to visually flesh this out for you. At that point, Sam or Dr. Dan, did you guys have an endpoint in mind? I know, Sam, you mentioned earlier, like, hey, do you really want to do this? Meaning, do you want to go through the entire software lifecycle? Or at that point, Dr. Dan, was the goal more near term to take the wires that came out of the 1.5-day workshop and then get some rapid design done on Topcoder? Or was it always, well, we're going to get design, but we're not stopping, we're getting the software done too?
Yeah, it was always, we're going, like as Sam would say, we got to get to the finish line, because, it's the whole process of getting to where we needed to go to. I was relying on Sam and his expertise and all the people around me, but my goal at every moment was, I need a telemedicine platform that integrates my office logistics and operations, and I need it done so I can actually practice medicine, because it is the future of medicine. And to me, the idea, like, I didn't even know that you had to design an app before you actually did the app. I didn't know you have to like take those designs and create wireframes, and I didn't know you had to take it to a development side. Like these are the parts that I just had no idea. I thought there was like a kit like on App Store that you can like create this app, and next thing you know, it's all working fine. But maybe not that ignorant, but it was it was eye-opening for sure.
No, very cool. So I think that brings us then into the realm of Kelly's world and Topcoder. So Kelly, you get a call or a Slack message or something and saying, hey, got this cool new project. Obviously Sam brings what he called like a solid package of wireframes together. And then what's that next step? What did we do? Was it a rapid design challenge that went out? Was how many to get from the input that came out of design thinking and get Dr. Dan and team back some things to look at? What's the time frame? I think that's kind of neat to understand. And what were the steps you took on the Topcoder platform?
Actually, it wasn't part of the design piece. That came before me. Adam, our head of community these days, I think led that. So whether or not he did a Rux or a regular design challenge I'm not quite sure. But we did run a challenge, we got the results, and then we iterated over we had the winning designer iterate a couple times over the designs to make sure that we got all the screens that would be necessary, and to make some good tweaks to make a nice design, but also fill in gaps. When a design is more conceptual, like there's not all the detail screens, like how to edit your information, for instance, but you get some really nice prototype type screens where you're seeing it, you're going, okay, here's the workflow, here's the main workflow, and it's looking really good. So I think we got that put together and then handed it off to Sam, who presented it to Dr. Dan.
Cool. And then Sam, do you recall like one of the things one of the things we champion, especially in the front, this is kind of at this point still front end of design, right? Or front end of innovation. You did a design thinking workshop. We run a challenge and then some iterations through the platform. And one of the things we like to really think about and profess to our customers is that when you do it through a platform like Topcoder, you're getting back optionality. You know, you're not getting back 99 versions of something, because who needs that many choices, but you are getting back some bona fide options and design paths and design looks. Do you have a recollection of like about, you know, just in general, how many options were coming out that you would deem were high quality and that you're starting to gravitate towards and can see a path with?
Yeah, so you know that goes back to when we were doing our session during, you know, right after, it was a new method for, you know, working with Adam and Adam Moorhead, right? So what we did was we had a huge advantage was we got to help select some of the designers, but also we wanted some randomization and variability. And variability would help us, you know, see the value, because even if you had the best designer, someone might have a different position. So I think there are 8 to 10, forgive me, I don't know if that was the exact number, but mostly it wasn't overwhelming. It was refreshing, I think, to Dr. Dan to see the variability coming through and the ideas blossoming. Rather than just one specific idea, he may have had received 10 or up to 10. So, and we were working this behind the scenes with Adam, because, you know, this was not a normal, process with the Rux. We basically were polishing as we went through it, coordinating and making this thing very streamlined. To Dan, it looked, you know, it looked, I guess, very fairly sequential in the back end of the house where we're baking the cakes and the pies. There was a little bit of flour flying around, but we were able to deliver something to him. It looked, you know, fairly streamlined. And I think it was just the coordination between two different but like-minded, like-focused teams.
No, very cool. Good to understand. So then the process of iterating, you find a design path, you kind of, you know, hopefully fall in love with, or one that you're starting to fall in love with and saying, okay, that's the one I think we're going to go down that path. I like this design, I like this designer, how they're thinking and how they're baking out this experience. You go through some kind of iterations and some, I would call it like quality nitpicking. So Dr. Dan, how involved were you? You know, Sam said at the beginning that you could kind of be firm because you know what you want, but also have that kind of good bedside manner, which is probably good for your profession. But how involved were you when it came to really caretaking and being on the nitpicky side in a good way to give critical feedback within the design process, where you would get to the point where you're like, you know, I know that if we could make this design come to life, I have a great experience for the patients, and then I have a really, really useful experience for the doctors on the other side of the platform. How involved were you with Sam in that kind of iteration period?
Yeah, you know, and Sam could probably tell you, I felt the need to be involved in every aspect of it. And I sort of took on a little bit of a project management role because I felt the design had to play a key role in the operations of the practice. And, you know, like I said, I've been practicing for 20 years. We see thousands of patients a year. We've probably done 150,000 sleep studies over the years. And so I know the operations. So I needed to, believe it or not, incorporate that into the design. So there was a whole workflow from the first screen to the second screen to the third screen, almost like a virtual doctor office. And, you know, that's what I know. So they were relying on my input on that, or they'd have an idea and I say, no, that couldn't work because, you know, this is why. And I can't even think of an example, but it seemed like almost with every screen, there was something different that we needed to do, or, you know, it's just an interesting process. It was amazing, actually.
No, it's very cool. I mean, listen, domain expertise to get to an application, especially in an area and an arena like that you're in, like sleep medicine, that's so niche, you know, you're going to have experience of understanding those workflows that, you know, very few people are going to know. So, you know, that knowledge share is critical to getting great design mapped out, and then getting the intricacies detailed so that they can be ready for development. Because if you're designing just for the fancy of designing, you're going to end up in a bad spot. You're going to end up in a spot that disappoints a lot of people, because it might look great, but functionality wise, it's going to fall on its face once it gets, you know, put into real world use. So really interesting to understand that perspective, and kind of the role you played. And then Kelly, over to you. I'd love to understand, you know, I know this was an accelerated time frame, and I know that we were doing this again amidst this disruption that we're all feeling in sincere and different ways. So design comes back, we're in a good spot. Can you give us a sense of the development steps when you got the project and took it over, and just some of the first things that were done, and maybe just give us a bit of a timeline of how you moved through the dev process on the Topcoder platform?
Sure. So at the time we started, we weren't actually accelerated yet. I like design. I like having a really pretty website or application, but I also know that like it's just icing. So you need to make sure that your core functionality is there. This is a multi-phase project. We did focus on the patient side first, so the mobile app. But even more micro to that was I needed to make sure that our teleconference software worked. So we started with a really ugly white page application that's just that teleconferencing piece. And we had to make sure that worked, because without that piece, this entire app would be useless. So we start there. We put some more pretty designs on it. Then we had to make sure that the scheduling worked, because this is a doctor's office. We do have to schedule. And that's our second most important piece. So we get that working, and we get the schedule talking to the teleconference. And there, like that could almost be like 50 to 75% of the app, just in terms of functionality. So we got that cranked out very quick. And then we started putting the designs and the workflow and the onboarding around that. So we got set up for success by making sure that we handled the core functionality first, and then we started making it look nice. There's no sense in wasting a ton of time making the pages and then plugging things in if those things that we plug in don't work.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. And that makes perfect sense. Like tackling the gnarliest stuff first, and making sure the functionality is right, so that you can apply the layer of great design on top of it, and then tie it together, and then go fix and go QA and do all those things that have to happen anyway. So
can I jump in there real quick, Clinton, and just kind of add on to that? You know, and I almost had to be convinced of that. So when I looked at this, and when I first even getting to Topcoder, let me just take 2 steps back, because after the design phase, we actually kind of had all this. We went back and Sam and the BNMC and the innovation guys, we were talking about, well, we kind of want to bring in our own team, right? So we're going to try to do our development in-house, get a team together, and try to get this thing developed, right, Sam? And so we've, you know, really great guy, great ideas that we kind of did it through this agile Jira platform. I'm sure all your coders know all this kind of stuff, but it's all new to me. But you know, we tried this, and I met with this team, and I was on the team almost every morning with a stand-up, and we weren't getting from like even the batter's box to first base, and it just, things kept on falling back, and we just weren't making any progress whatsoever. And here I am feeling like I'm running out of time, because like Sam told you, when I met with him, I wanted it done yesterday, and I was already about 3 months behind. So you know, so it took a lot for me to recognize when things aren't going well. I'm the kind of guy, like, we'll make it work. I'm always this person, like, you know, no matter what, we'll stick it through. And we tried some different iterations with the team, and, you know, it just wasn't working. And it just, whether it was because, you know, my expectations were too high, or the applications were too complicated, the integrations that people didn't really know. So we had to end that relationship, and went back to Sam, you know, with the tail between my legs, and say, Sam, this just isn't working out. And he's like, you know, Topcoder to the rescue, right? So he says, you know, we probably should have stuck with Topcoder anyway with the development piece. I know you wanted to do some stuff in-house, Dan, but let's go back and talk to those guys. So went back, talked to those guys, and again, I still had these lofty expectations. I still wanted the app done completely, and I really wanted it done, fully. So when they first presented me the proposal, they had I'm saying, yeah, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to have everything working perfectly because that's what the patient's going to want. I can't have just this MVP or this terminology you guys use. So, as it turns out, you not only convinced me that I needed an MVP, but you really set the stage and told me how it was going to work. And you told me about the phases and what we need to do initially, and that it's just simply going to be okay, and that you're going to be really happy with the outcome. And then that's what brought me to Kelly. and thank God, it's just, Kelly was a godsend. And I'm not that much a religious person, but it seemed that way. But she's just, again, so Sam let go of my hand and Kelly took my hand and took me down this next process, and finding that happy medium with, just like Kelly said, functionality, and finding the key parts of the app. Let's get this proof of concept, let's get these things working, and then we'll add the icing, and then we'll add all the fun stuff on top of it. But and that's kind of where we're at.
No, that's a great. Thank you for that. That certainly helps kind of fill it in from your perspective, and I think that's super important. Kelly, I wanted to kick it over to you again. So we did development, which included integrations and the front end code. We're now through QA as of today, which is days are getting blurred. I think it's April 14, I believe, is the last I checked. And as of today, Kelly, where do we stand? What's remaining to get us through the MVP stage? And then Dr. Dan, I'd love to understand what's next. What happens next? So I know we're at the cusp of getting this pretty much done in that phase as we wanted to, and then what remains for you to still accomplish. So Kelly, if you want to take the first part, and we could pass it to Dr. Dan.
All we really have to do right now is finish up the legal paperwork, all the basic things that applications need before they're released to the public, like terms of service, privacy policy, all that. Get those polished up and published, and then we hook it up to the app, and then we go through the App Store application process, and then we should be also testing one more time in production before we release it to anybody to make sure that it actually, like, the final product actually works the way it needs to. And then from there, Dr. Dan's going to start distributing and trying to start using it. But we're also going to be helping and supporting for another couple weeks the product that we've already released. And then we will talk through any further future phases, since, as I said, we started patient first. So our doctor's portal is a little utilitarian. So we'll be working on improving that, and creating that last piece, or that second piece of the doctor's office experience, and actually, like, making the office for the doctors virtually. Bless their hearts.
Yeah. Which is nice. And I know you have to go. Sam mentioned earlier the front of the house versus the back of the house analogy. So we're taking care of the front of the house, make sure that patient experience has the bells and whistles that are needed, and then we could go look at the back of the house and make that a better experience, or a more delightful experience for the doctors too. Kelly, before you do hop, I don't want to make you late. Quick question between the co-pilots you accessed, and then just the different talent from developers and QA engineers, et cetera. How many people in general, even if it's fairly ballpark, do you think were involved in the project in one facet or another?
We're looking at about half a dozen, so about 6. We had one developer who really started and stuck out and just kept winning. So as we've been doing tweaks, we've just been engaging him. We've had folks who come in and do QA and kind of try to tear the app apart. We still have not crashed that app yet, even though we've been trying to. So we know how the crash tracker works and what it collects. I haven't been able to manage that yet. So that is not a challenge, public. So we're working on that right now. But hopefully we had about half a dozen folks work on it.
Cool. And then we had the designers earlier as well.
Mhm.
So it's a great use case to get out and use distributed talent and get this work done in that accelerated time frame that Dr. Dan, you were after, and Sam, you were promising you could deliver. So Kelly, I know you need to go, so obviously feel free to hop off. Thank you. And then Dr. Dan, I'd ask you to wrap up with you started with the idea that telemedicine apps, they existed. You had a different vision for them. You really wanted to focus on some of the experiences and sharpen them, make them a heck of a lot better. Can you give it in your summation where you're at today and kind of what you feel has been accomplished from I would say almost from like a feature, like a functionality and feature set that you're really excited about, really proud of, that, hey, right now this app can do these certain things really, really well. And then the part two of that would be, what in your brain, how does that expand from there? How does the innovation potentially continue so that you keep delivering an even better experience? That'd be really cool to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right now, what a patient can do when they hear about Ognomy or their doctor says, I'd like you to kind of see Dr. Rifkin and his team for your sleep apnea, just download this app, right? So they just can, as opposed to faxing, this script over to our office trying to coordinate with the patient, sending this back and forth. What this app does, it allows the patient to download the app, follow all HIPAA encryption and everything that you need in the medical world, and they can register into our practice, and they can put their information in about their patient information, their contact information, their insurance information, their payment information, all into the app, and they can schedule a visit through telemedicine with a practitioner. We can coordinate the visit, we can perform the visit, we can end the visit, and we can reschedule them for their next follow-up visit. And there's a lot that went into that, but that's the beginning, right? So we have all these amazing ideas that came through that design workshop with Sam the first 2 days, and we still have those storyboards, and we still have our ideal app, which may be, believe it or not, a few years away, as we kind of go through these phases. But we have the beginning, and we can practice medicine and continue to maintain the highest standards. And that was a big deal to me. I wanted to not only continue to practice the way we did, but we've spent 20 years developing a nice high standard of care, and we didn't want to compromise that standard of care just by doing it through a telemedicine application. So we look forward to incorporating that into the app fully, and incorporating new technologies like AI, outcomes data, all kind of interesting ideas. And the neat thing is that knowing that we have this team in place from the BNMC and Topcoder and what you've been able to perform so far, I am fully confident, and I don't have any doubt in the world that we're going to kind of have the most awesome thing in a few years. You'll see.
That's great. Congrats on all the success there.
Yeah.
So I think folks can go, if they're interested, they can go to ognomy.com, ognomy.com. You'll see a beautiful video and a splash page there where if you want to find out more about the app, you just put some information in and they'll let you know more about it. And then Sam, I want to give you some love for sure too. This doesn't happen without you. You have your ears and eyes open. You see a great opportunity. We have a long-standing partnership between yourself, BNMC, and Topcoder. If folks are interested in design thinking or just really tapping your skill sets, how can they reach out to you also and your team?
Well, basically, you can reach out to me through email, call, or basically, on our bnmc.org website. We're basically called the BNMC Innovation Labs, and we help organizations, and typically not startups. We're helping scaled, mature, like that guy down there, typical more mature folks just try to rethink their organization, rethink what tomorrow looks like. And come to me if you're a large organization, medium to small. We can help you re-envision your organization to become more innovative. So bnmc.org, and that would be the good place to find what we're doing, and of course through Topcoder. But thanks for the plug, and
of course,
we really appreciate the opportunity to help a great app like Dan's. We do other things as well, but and of course working with Topcoder.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we'll make sure that all this information's on screen and in the descriptions and on the blog posts. And if folks want to check it out, we did post a great recap of this story just yesterday on the Topcoder blog. So topcoder.com/blog. You'll see the Ognomy post right there, and it's got the beautiful video, beautiful visuals. We'll whip some of those into this iteration of this conversation as well to make this visual. So you probably have seen a lot of this already, which is super cool. But I want to thank both of you. And again, Kelly had to leave earlier, and Kelly and the team from Topcoder. But I think if I had to wrap it, I'd say like you personify what it means to innovate in a time where so many people are disrupted, and this is a very real disruption, and it's a health crisis that we just haven't really been through before. And yet, with understanding how to wield platforms, understanding how to take knowledge, take focus, and take something like your expertise, Dr. Dan, you could use that focus through other individuals who have just immense skill. They have skill and desire, and they want to come to the table and do good work. And that's what we're focused on at Topcoder, is being that platform and that connective tissue out to very skilled community members, and then people like yourselves who say, you know what, I've got something special here. I want you to help me bring it to life. And then Sam, you were the great, the straw that stirred this all together with your services, and we really appreciate it. So Dr. Dan, thank you. Good luck to you and your team, and good luck as the app gets launched. We look forward to just keeping this conversation going and, understanding uptake. How is it performing? Maybe doing a bit of a check-in with you later to understand what your patients are saying about it, and what the doctors on the platform and how they're liking it too. Would love to catch back up and find that information out in the near future.
Sounds like a great idea. I love it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you both, guys. Stay
Thank
safe. Yeah, we'll talk again soon. Have a great one.
Thanks. Thank you again.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a great
Bye.
day.